Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on one of the finest examples of an Ambassador ever made. This is the Abu Ambassadeur Morrum. It's a beautiful reel all around. It's made in Sweden. This one is the M5600C. Everything about this reel screams quality. It's got a very heavy machined aluminum side case. Internally, it's pretty much an Ambassador all the way around. There is an interesting kind of a mag setup on this side, if I recall. We'll take a look at that. And, well, we're going to show you the insides of this one. We'll show you how to service it. And we'll show you how to keep it running for a long time to come. Well, this reel was sent in by Tim. Tim is in West Virginia. I hope he's doing okay. I just saw some footage of some floods. He's up in the Wheeling, West Virginia section. And one of the things that Tim does is he makes these spinnerbaits. And he actually sent me a top water spinning bait with two spinners on it. And boy, I'll tell you what, within 3 casts I had a bass, and he told me, "You're going to catch bass on this one." I sure did. Well, this one is another example of a spinnerbait that he makes. I can't wait to put that one out on the water. It's amazing that the talents that folks have that watch this channel, and I thoroughly appreciate all the skills and the like that they do, whether they're rod building, whether they're working on lures, or whether they just know how to catch fish, in addition to all the other talents we've been blessed with. Well, we're going to start taking this reel apart. I'm going to take the handle off. You saw me remove the cap clamp by removing the screw. Now we're going to remove the cap, and then we'll take the handle off. And while we're doing this, I want to encourage you to take pictures, because those will be reference points should you get stuck along the way. The first one of these, or one, not the first, one of these that I did recently, somebody didn't do that. I got this in a bag, and I got to tell you, this side plate over here was a very interesting little endeavor to put back together again, particularly when I couldn't get the, couldn't make sure that all the pieces and parts are there. All right, I'm going to take one more piece, loosen that up while it's on the reel, and then we'll take the side cap off. We're going to go service this. So I think what's going on here, Tim said, is this even worth servicing? Oh, gee whiz, it sure is. Given that I just built it up as one of the finest reels that Ambassador ever made. But I think his issue is really in the handle here. These handles are very tight. I'm just going to use some penetrating oil, try and loosen them up a little bit. Now, I've seen folks that are using the leveraged handles on these, the aftermarket handles. Oh yeah, that loosens it right up. That won't be a problem. Same thing here, no problem there. All right, good. So a lot of times penetrating oil is the answer. It's just going to do enough to get you back in the game with handles that aren't cooperating. When I take my pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray, and that helps me to keep track of where they are. Well, we're going to continue removing the side plate then, and while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Today I'm working on an Abu Ambassadeur round bait caster. Tomorrow, well, it might be a low profile bait caster, might be a saltwater trolling reel, maybe a spinning reel, maybe vintage or current. You never know. That's kind of what makes this fun to begin with. And well, when I work on them, I generally try to do a video if I don't have one in my catalog. If I don't have one in my catalog, generally speaking, I will do that video so that you can learn how to do it yourself across a broad array of fishing reels and types. Well, as you can see already, it kind of looks interesting, right? We have our line guide is just kind of hanging there. That goes into the hole here in the side plate. And we'll remove that spool. And then, in this case, the bearing is under the spool, and there's brakes on the spool here. Underneath that, I don't know why they took the case off. It's just a holding case there. There is a terminal for that line guide, but it doesn't need to be removed. But when I got the reel in every piece and part that's out there. I think this may just pull off. I'm just going to oil the bearing through that. No need to remove it, but it is replaceable should you wear any of the click or the drives there. With that bearing oiled, pull in your breaks, because there is a race here that's going to run on, and just put it back in. That's basically that side's service. I'm going to wait till I put this cap back on to service that pawl, because that's free floating right now. All right, let's take a look at what's underneath. Again, take a look at this versus the one we just did. We did a Chinese-made BCX. This was plastic. This one is a heavily machined aluminum. Beautiful all-around construction. There's 2 screws, I think, that are holding that on. Let's go take those off. And again, if you do not have and cannot get the schematic, make sure you take the pictures of these. So the field test said the only thing that seemed to be tough or troubling about this reel was that handle. So I don't expect to see anything unusual underneath. So the usual service typically is to take the reel apart, to inspect all the pieces and parts, make sure they're clean, get them lubricated again, get it back out fishing. Let's see if we can remove the case. We can. We had a bunch of drag washers just jump out there. It's a good thing that you kind of know what the drag washers are in this situation. I want to take these 2 springs off right away. And interestingly enough, here's one of the toughest pieces I had when I had to reassemble that. There's a spring here that was, well, not there. Was removed, and I had a dickens of a time trying to figure out that's how that was set. So let me give you a picture of this up front and close and personal, just so that you know, if you're working on this reel, how this is set up. I'm going to take off the main gear. I'm going to pull the part there. Let's take off the drive gear. This one should come off as well, I think. Oh yeah, that one snaps in place. And I can't get the wheel out without that. Well, this is a case of sleeping dog lies. We're just going to leave that there. Can I get it in from behind? Whoops, something's starting to move. Nope, I can't do enough of that. But I can get it up to drop some oil in there. Now remember, this was a very difficult one to come up, and you can snap that. That's kind of a pressure fit on that. So for the sake of doing just a basic service and making sure your reel is cleaned, oiled, greased, and not in any broken or needing parts, sometimes you just need to opt for that. All right, a little bit of oil onto the swing mechanism, which is going to be your free spool release. We can put our drive gear back on. Take a look at the pinion gear and pinion gear assembly. Check your teeth, make sure that they're nice and clean. There's a little bit of dirt there, so we'll clean that out. Clean your carrier out. Now, if there's anything to be said about this reel, it just doesn't have any greases and oils in it. Kind of unusual. But I would say that it was probably serviced a while ago, and then it wasn't. And, well, greases evaporate, dry out, and then you get a noisy reel. So I don't know if that was what Tim may have been experiencing or not, but he won't be experiencing it when we're done. All right, greases applied. Find your ramped side of your carrier or your yoke. That's going to face in, as is the slot in the pinion gear. Bring that over and set that on the 2 posts. In my experience is this goes in first almost all the time with bait casting reels. And then you can use your main gear. Let's see if we can't bring that out. Again, you can see totally dry, totally evaporated. That's why you do your service on a regular basis. You want to keep these oiled and greased so that it doesn't start running metal on metal and, well, just damaging the reel. Looks like I got a little piece of something caught in there. Wipe that off. And you don't have to get the grease in every tooth. Remember, we got some grease onto the pinion gear. We're greasing this one up. Because they're different diameters, they will spread the grease around. All right, bring that on. Next up then is our drag washers. These are alternating. It's a 4-washer set. So we have a hard washer that does not need to be oiled or greased because, well, it's a hard washer. It's non-permeable. It won't accept greases and oils. Second one is the keyed washer. Second drag washer. Don't try to test the rigidity of this thing. You'll snap it. I think it's a graphite washer or a carbon washer, one of the two. The eared washer goes up top. Oh, we do have a 6-washer set. Oh, there you go. Surprise, surprise. All right. So the third one goes on, and then the cap washer. And then the last part we have here, we didn't get into this when we took it off, but there's 2 tension washers up top. And there's the inner sleeve for your anti-reverse. Put the sleeve on now. I'm going to hold on those cap washers. And then the parts that I almost always forget when I'm doing these, those 2 yoke springs have to go back. And that's where using a parts tray or a parts management system, whatever you're comfortable with, is going to help you, because it will tell you that there's something left over. Before I leave this, I want to get any greases that may be in that anti-reverse out. There's a little bit of grease left over in the case here. There's a burring on the back here, so we'll oil that burring as well. Let's bring this all the way around. Reseat your case. And then the 2 case screws. Now this is not a case like many of the other cases where there's just a solid quick snap to these and a firm plate on the back. So just be aware of that as you're tightening this down. Looks like I'm off just a little bit here. You want to make sure that that little stud that is holding that spring on comes through the case. Okay, and now we should have a nice tight ring here. Give it a turn quickly, make sure that everything's turning the right way. Once those side plates are tightened, take those 2 tension washers. They're curved. I put one up the belly down on the second one. And we can take our star adjuster, put that back on. Be careful when you put the star adjuster on. If you don't put it on square and it doesn't go on nice and free and easy like this, you may have it cross-stripped, so pay particular attention to that. Sometimes it's a little tight, and you always can check underneath, make sure that it's parallel to the collar of this. If you're having any struggle, any doubt, back it off, do it again. There's a little tension washer that goes between your star adjuster and the handle. The handle's next. The reel's been very clean. It looks like we have a little bit of something going on in the handle there. We did oil the knobs, so that'll make that go a lot easier. Then we can take our cap nut. Again, hand tighten these. And generally speaking, if you can get the flat of the nut to be perpendicular to that hole, or the point of the nut to point directly at that hole, then your hole in your cap nut is going to line up with that. Again, just a little bit too far. This happens to be one where you can generally adjust it just by using the wrench on top of that. Don't need to remove it to guess. I'll take this side. Nope, that's a flat-headed screw. Always amazes me. Don't know why manufacturers do it, but they do it. I got Phillips head screws as case screws, and then I have a flat-bladed screw for the handle tie-down. Maybe helps in the plant so that they know if it's flat-bladed, that the machine tool it belongs there. Don't know. Now, come to think of it, the Morrum that I was working on in the past that had all of that sophistication had a mag adjuster on that side. So there's a couple of versions of that. A little bit of drop of oil onto the drive gear for your line guide. Find a hole for the line guide when you go to mesh in. And then sometimes you do need to turn the handle to mesh that line guide drive gear with the gears that we had worked on inside. You saw those plastic gears that drive that. Going to tighten that up. Finger tighten first, then maybe a quarter turn. It doesn't take much to seat those. And then the only thing left then is, as promised, we want to do the line guide pawl. And on this reel I like to do it after the reel is back together again because of that floating line guide. Alright, grab the pliers, pull that out. You want to check the shoulders of the pawl to make sure they are clean. That's the one parts that are underneath the 2 points. And then you want to check the point itself to make sure that those are equal. These are in good condition. A little squirt of oil onto the worm gear. If the worm gear was dirty, which this is not, but if you saw grease and dirt and debris in there, first thing to do when you had that reel off, you could remove that line guide, clean it up. In this case, it's in good stead. Bring that pawl down. What I like to do with the pawl now is to hold my finger on it and turn it. You will feel it click in, setting it inside the worm gear track so that you know you have it properly seated. I'm going to try and use this screw starter here for the cap. I just have a hard time with these caps in tight places. Let's see if we can get this one on using the starter. If not, we'll kind of revert back to kind of the way I do it. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that, so we'll just go back to the traditional screwdriver and try to align it that way. Alright, we're in. Alright, before we go any further, make sure that that works. And while we're doing that, here's a test, right? Boy, that turns nice and free and easy. Free spool release. How does it cast? Cast nice. Cast control. If you want to spin more freely, back it off. You saw all the ball bearings. There's 3 of them in a line there. The spool side on both and the cast control one. Make sure that it flips back. The handle's working nice and easy again with that WD-40. This reel's ready to go fishing again. Again, thank you very much to Tim for sending that in. And Tim, thank you for the spinnerbait. Can't wait to catch another bass. As I mentioned, that first one that you sent me, that top water spinnerbait was wonderful. And we put that to good use. I'll send you pictures a little bit later. So, that's how you service the Abu Ambassadeur Morrum. And before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. Appreciate your dedication to task, your career choice, and what you do day in and day out. Also want to thank you for watching. It's always fun to work on different reels. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Again, please subscribe if you haven't, and please use the like button if you've appreciated the video. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.